Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Andy here, aka Montolio, and we are back for another Vintage League, and we are playing Cradle Vine. As we work our way up to Eternal Weekend, this is a deck that I am strongly considering playing, and this is my dot 4 version of this deck. And what we are trying this time is we are not going to run Hogak. We're taking a page out of No Props list, and we're going to try and focus a little bit more on dealing damage versus tapping out to cast Hogak. Uh, we also are playing, if you see our land configuration, 19 lands. And you look at this and go, holy catfish, that is a lot of lands for a deck like this. And you're watering yourself down a little bit as a result of doing that. However, these lands are all extremely powerful. They are redundant, and what we don't like, we can discard to Bazaar, and whatever we draw all has its utility in our deck here. Boseiju is a card that I think is extremely powerful in Vintage. It hits a lot of strategies that cannot be countered. And this deck has great consistency in its ability to cast Boseiju when it matters. So for those of you who are aware of Vintage, one of the big counteracts that opponents play against this style of deck is Sphinx of the Steel Wind. And I do think people are going to move away from this. It is just my hopes that they will not come to that determination until after Champs. And of course, you are probably going to see this video after Champs, as I am not posting them to protect our tech here. But Boseiju hits a lot of relevant things. Sphinx of the Steel Wind and Bolas' Citadel have been the two most predominant things that we hit. That said, of course, Breach is very popular right now. Being able to interact with Breach uncounterable is very powerful. Of course, it hits different things like Oath of Druids. It can get Standstill. Just to name a few, it can remove a pesky Hollow One or a Construct token, an Urza's Saga in a pinch. And so I have decided to move to 3 main. And of course, I'm trying this out. If you've seen my other videos, I have had 2 main and 1 on the board. Then I went to 2 main, 2 on the board, and I've really liked Boseiju. Of course, that's not a surprise. Boseiju is awesome in this deck. But it's a matter of, do we need to have 3 main, or do we need to have 4 in the deck in general? It might be an overkill, but I've really liked the card, and thus I've built my mana base to be able to support this. As you can see, I run 3 Yavimaya Cradles, Cradle of Growth, and I also have 4 Gaia's Cradle. And this might be an overkill, but I think the mana base is just so vital to this deck functioning without Bazaar of Baghdad that I'm liking the idea of this configuration. I guess what my fear is how much are we giving up in Bazaar mirrors, in particular Hogak mirrors, because we are going to struggle to beat a Hogak with this list. We're going to need our mini Progenitus here to be able to really carry the weight in those matchups. And perhaps it will, but I don't know. We haven't had a lot of matchups without Hogak. So, as a matter of fact, this is our first one trying this without Hogak. So, that said, guys, let's get into the video. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Feel free to leave any comments throughout the video. I will get back to you, and we'll see you shortly. Hey, everybody. It's Andy here, aka Montolio. We're back for round 1 of a Vintage League. We're playing CradleVine today. We won the die roll. Don't really know what my opponent's on, but I don't think this is the hand we're looking for. I think this looks a lot better. So I think an easy one to put away is Bazaar of Baghdad here. We don't need to have that. We have 2 other ones in hand. This is an example of some of the challenges that you face when you're playing the CradleVine deck. As you can see, this is a very awkward hand. Like, these could be Bloodghasts when you're playing the Jund version. And of course, your discard equity is just so much higher with those decks than what you are with this deck. But of course, because we have cards like Main Deck Collector Roof, our deck can be very potent on turn 2 when you're casting that. Sometimes you get away with it on turn 1 if you find something like a Black Lotus. Okay, so this is a pretty nifty hand. I think very easily we're discarding 2 Collector Roofs here. I don't know what we're playing against here. So let's think about this for a second. If we're playing against Golos, I just think we're in trouble any which way you chalk it up if my opponent is able to find a very quick Golos. putting it into a Tabernacle, even saving the Boseiju to be able to play around Tabernacle somewhat is very middling. It offers us not much. It is my feeling here that we probably discard the Boseiju. We keep the Bazaar. We hope to find a Wasteland or a Cradle the following turn to be able to deploy ourselves forward. And what keeping the second Bazaar does is it does help us churn to find root walls if and when we get into a pinch. So I think this is the correct line. And I mean, 3 hollow ones is no joke. Now, this hand is very vulnerable to combo. That goes without saying. I know you're looking at this and you're saying, well, Boseiju could get you out of some tight spots, if you do draw something like a Cradle off the top. And that is true. That is true. But the likelihood that we will be able to use this Boseiju in the near future with the tension of only having a Bazaar, in hand with so little card resources, discard equity, I think that this is probably just the best line to enable ourselves to churn here versus sitting on the Boseiju. In addition to that, we could get Wastelanded here, and I'd be happy to get time walked that way. Okay, Misty Rainforest. This is a Deathrite Shaman? I sure would be happy if it was. Okay, an Ancestral Recall it is. Okay. Well, what we could do is we could Bazaar here, and I think I will do that. The reason I will do it pre-combat is in the event I don't find anything I like, or we find a Vengevine and we find a Root Wall, we can play the second Bazaar and potentially animate a Vengevine. Because we have the 2 Bazaars, this is more viable than if we had one in this situation. If we don't, we can find something like a Gaia's Cradle or a Wasteland, and we could maybe find some security that way. So I'm going to do that. My opponent is likely going to crack an Ancestral here. They did not. So all of that said, I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep the Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. And what that does is I do understand that turns on my opponent's, protects my opponent's Misty Rainforest, but they're not going to win that way. This sets me up next turn to be able to potentially cast a Collector Roof. It also gives me some protection from Tabernacle. I don't think Tabernacle is going to be a card that we're facing in the main here. I think it's far more likely that we are going to run into combo here. But I think that's okay. I'm just going to play it out, and we're gonna make our opponent have it. We have a pretty good shot here of killing them next turn. But I am nervous here. Okay, red doesn't scare me. Ancestral, okay, they do have it. So we need to dodge combo here and survive. And this is one of the vulnerabilities of our deck, is facing combo, but we get a lot better post board. Can my opponent combat 3 hollow ones here? Okay. Dak Faden. Yep. They probably have to draw here, I would guess. I mean, they could steal a hollow one, but... Yeah. Okay. I guess a Lotus and a Time Walk could do it for them here. But this in itself is not good enough. They could have Force of Vigor. I am not going to churn my Bazaar in the upkeep here. Because we have 4 Collector Roofs in our deck, maybe it is correct. Collector Roof, though, stops them from doing anything scary here. We also have the option of Boseiju. I'm going to draw. Okay, great. All right, so nice win for us there. I'm not really sure what we're playing against here. Probably a Grixis Breach deck is my guess. I'm not really sure. I mean, Force of Vigor is okay. It's an active discussion against breach style decks. Should we be playing against one? How many Force of Vigors do we want? And if it's outright Tinker Breach, then yes, we probably want them all. If it's more of an overt breach deck, I don't like Force of Vigor as a tool to combat breach itself. It's typically not a winning line. I mean, I guess it could save you in a pinch for sure, but I'm not crazy about it. But they've got sagas as well. So maybe I will start with 3. I still like Chalice of the Void. But whether we should be siding that out or not, I'm not 100% sure. Of course, it stops the Black Lotus from coming in from the graveyard if they're playing against that. If this is a PO style deck, I certainly like it in, even on the draw. But of course, as you know, we have 4 Collector Roofs. The problem with the Collector Roof is it can be removed. And of course, my opponent is likely well aware of the style of deck I am playing here. They've seen Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. I think it's this card is pretty much solely played in the CradleVine list. What I'm deliberating on here is, do I want some number of Endurance? And I think I do. I like Endurance a fair bit. I probably am going to, I guess on the draw maybe. I'm not sure if I want Hexdrinker more, if I want Blazing Rootwalla. I think Hexdrinker I probably can shave down on. This is more, I think, slated, in my opinion, against the mid-range decks. These are all hedges, guys. I don't even know what I'm playing against here. But these, in general, are just good cards, like Endurance. You know, your opponent puts their Brain Freeze, you know, on the stack, and they mill a bunch of their cards, and you know, you can just respond with Endurance. It's a very easy powder here. But for those of you who are just joining and, you know, have not watched a lot of these other videos that I've made on this particular list, the main selling point of this deck list is its versatility and its ability to not play with Bazaar. You can play non-Bazaar hands that are extremely powerful, like, you know, it's ideal if you at least get one Bazaar activation before you get wastelanded or it gets shut off with a Spyglass or a Needle or something like that. But then from there, you've already hopefully deployed some of your game plan in, you know, Hollow Ones, Vengevines, and Rootwallas. And from there, you start casting like Yavimaya Cradle, Gaia's Cradle, and you start actually casting cards like Collector Roof and Hex Drinkers and Once Upon a Times and Force of Vigors. These are all very viable game plans. So we're going to powder this one away. This is a really nice looking hand, this one. We're going to keep that. And when you look at cards like Leyline of the Void, like, that card is not looking very good against what I'm trying to do here. And this is one of the selling points of this list, is that people deploy these plans against what we're doing, and they're typically not winning strategies. So here we are, and of course, another selling point about this particular deck that I'm playing today is we are even less vulnerable to Leyline of the Void than we normally are because we don't have Hogaaks. You know, when you look at the Jund versions, they've got 4 Bloodghast, they've got 4 Hogaaks in their deck. Leyline hits those decks a lot harder than it hits ours. Leyline, for those of you who are unaware, you're seeing this after champs, is I'm very happy with typically when my opponents are playing Leyline of the Void against me, because it does almost nothing to my deck. It shuts off 4 cards, and guess what? I can hardcast Vengevines. So here's an interesting dilemma. Our Bazaar hand is not looking very good in general here. We've got the root wall to discard. Once Upon a Time shores this up significantly. Do I want to force a vigor in response here? My gut is no. I don't think I do. I think I'm going to let this go. Because I have a wasteland, and I'm fairly comfortable wastelanding here if need be. See, I think I'm much more interested in hitting a Mox. So, this is really interesting. Do I go for that? I think this might be just too tempting to pass up. And I think I'm just going to do it. And we have lots of draws off the top that are still good. Like we can cast a turn 1 Collector Roof if we draw one. Okay, that's great. Beseiju, that's pretty nice. I do think we're going to Bazaar here. I really am not thrilled to discard any of these cards outside of the Root Walla. But yeah, that ended up working out really nicely for us. So it's evident to me that they don't have Force of Will in hand. It's also evident to me my opponent is playing a combo deck to some extent. I am not as scared if Collector Roof resolves. Like, I think that probably Mox Emerald is the best card to get rid of in this particular instance. Because it's going to be shut off by Collector Roof, and I'm fairly confident my opponent did not have the discipline not to Force of Will. The Force of Vigor last turn. What we could walk into is, by doing this line, is we could walk into a Force of Negation, which could counter our Black Lotus, which makes our hand a lot worse. But I think that's a worthwhile gamble here. I mean, despite some of these cards we're discarding seem suboptimal, it's very hard to know how the game is going to move forward. And, you know, by our Black Lotus getting countered here, yeah, I mean, I might have done things differently, but you can't play around everything, right? So I am going to cast this, and I'm going to feel pretty happy about it. Where I would be a little bit upset is if we walked into a Tabernacle. This is a disaster, but it is what it is, right? Well, our version versus the Jund version of Bazaar is we are far worse off against Tabernacle because we don't have the presence of Bloodghast. And obviously that's a paradox, right? Because we just talked about how impotent Leyline of the Void is against us. But if the opponent doesn't have it, and they're playing Tabernacle as their main hate piece, having Bloodghast is a pretty big game. Because it, you can recur your Bloodghast and pressure your opponent through that. So there is definitely a bit of a push and pull as to what we're trying to accomplish here. Hopefully we don't get Tabernacled here, and we didn't. Okay, so I think at this stage in the game, like what I am looking to do here, like I like my creatures or my lands here. I think my opponent, being a combo player, is probably going to have some difficulty managing what we're doing. I am going to play the Strip Mine because of the event that I draw a Yavimaya or a Gaia's Cradle next turn, I will be able to remove whatever land it is they choose to play and be able to hold up a Seiju. Whereas if they get a basic and we play the Wasteland, playing coy, aha, you get a basic and we tricked you, we got a Strip Mine in hand. That is not the line I'm looking to take right here. I'm looking to protect myself from any type of combo they may be able to get with Beseiju and be able to get their land. It gives me a higher prevalence of being able to cause harm next turn. And I am not going to Bazaar. And this is one of the tricky things with this deck. I was watching a streamer play this deck the other day, and I could not believe how aggressive they were with Bazaar of Baghdad. It was completely unnecessary. They were diminishing the value of their hand in a way I just could hardly even imagine. So this feels like a dark or demonic tutor. So I wonder what they're going to get here. I suspect it's likely an Ancestral Recall, but it is possible it's a Tabernacle. But given that I have a Strip Mine in play, like are they hoping to trick me here? Could it be Tinker? Because I have the second Wasteland, like I don't think I'm going to get overly excited here. What are we more concerned about? I think probably the red source, right? Or maybe the black source. This is a really tough one because I think that they're probably getting removal from my Collector Roof. Now, there's one of two things that I can do here. What really one of three things. And to be clear, guys, I don't really know what my opponent is playing here. I'm not 100% sure. My gut, as I said earlier in sideboarding, I suspect it's like Grixis, Tinker Breach, something to that effect. I could do two things here, three things. One, I could go after one of their particular lands. I can take away Lightning Bolt and I can take away a Braid. I also go after their Underground Sea, which takes away something like Fatal Push or Cut Down. I think there's probably a higher prevalence of them having a Lightning Bolt effect than the latter. The other option is I Wasteland them both. And that is where I am leaning towards. The question here that we need to ask ourselves is Demonic Tutor. Did they go and get a Tabernacle expecting me to Wasteland them? Now, if they did go and get a Tabernacle and are one-upping us, I think that's pretty bad for us. But my intuition and my gut is that going to get a Demonic Tutor for a Tabernacle is a really big mind game, given that I have a Strip Mine in play. But maybe they think I'm going to be greedy. I'm not 100% sure. I think to be safe here, what I'm going to do, against my better judgment, is, and this could lose me the game here, but I'm going to Wasteland them. I'm going to sit back on Strip Mine here, and I'm going to try and not get Tabernacled out of the game, because that is truly how I lose the game. I am lost if I lose this stuff. So I have to be somewhat greedy. I think there's a higher prevalence of a Lightning Bolt than a Cut Down here. But we could lose by not doing that. Like, there is a strong case for going after both their lands here. So they just went and they got an Ancestral. And yes, I got punished a little bit by not being greedy there. Well, I'm presuming they went and got the Ancestral now. But once again, this Collector Roof is causing problems. I still think we have to be careful playing around Tabernacle. I don't know if my opponent runs it, but this is always one of the true challenges when you're playing a Bazaar deck, a non-dredge Bazaar deck, is how much do you play around Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale? And I find more often than not I'm right, but there's a lot of times that you're wrong because you have to take a gamble. And Urza Saga and the printing of Modern Horizons 2 made this even worse because you actively want to go after Urza Sagas with your Wastelands, but it sets you up in a position that you could fall prey to Tabernacle by doing so. And I think early on with MH2 being released, I really struggled with that. So I am probably going to Bazaar here, is my guess. We'll see what we draw, though. Yeah, so that makes it a lot easier for me. I am going to go now because of the presence of potentially hitting a Vengevine and another creature that we can cast. So let's try it. Oh, actually, Vengevine doesn't matter because of Leyline of the Void. So that's an easy discard for us. And I think we're going to get rid of the Bazaar, and I feel pretty good about this. Now, Boseiju. This is a situation where I actively think that I want to, well, it's difficult here. How much do I want to play around Tabernacle here? First things first, let's attack, and then we'll reconvene after that. I like this misstep here quite a bit, too, to boot. So first of all, I don't have a green mana source to use Boseiju. Secondly, I'm quite interested in strip mining here. I'd like to slow my opponent's resources down as much as I can. Their fast mana is not relevant at the moment, and I also have a mental misstep here to be able to potentially hit a lightning bolt. In addition to that, I'm worried about Tabernacle, so playing the Boseiju does help in that regard. In addition to that, if I do draw a land off the top, I am able to pump my Root Walla. Because there's an awkward tension here, I am going to play the Boseiju out, and I'm going to strip mine up my opponent. We are giving up, potentially, on killing my opponent next turn, short by 1 mana, but they can't fetch here with this line. Of note, next turn I am hitting them for, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they can actually fetch. My apologies. But if I find another land, it's pretty good. So this puts them down to 6. In addition to that, they can't force of will my mental misstep or pay for free. So this is their turn. I'm liking the way we sequence this here big time. Not to say we have this one in the bag, but I like our line of determining to play Boseiju versus sitting on it. All right. So that was a nice win for us, guys. I think we played that match really well. Still not 100% sure what my opponent was doing over there, but there's a couple points that we can take from this game that are important. And one, for those of you who are siding in Leyline and Void against this particular build, it's rarely correct. If you don't have a lot of options, fine, Leyline can hurt us, but it's not. It hurts us the least out of any Bazaar deck in the metagame. And this was an example. We just didn't even bat an eyelash at Leyline and Void. It did absolutely nothing. As you can see, we deployed multiple root walls. We cast a collector roof. Like, it just didn't matter. It's not what our game plan is in the graveyard. The graveyard is just a very secondary plan, and so that's the main thing that I gleaned from this particular match, is that Leyline of the Void just is not reasonable hate. And to be perfectly honest with you, there is very little hate that actually harms us. Tabernacle is the worst, but we can easily circumvent that given enough time, like a turn as soon as turn 2, because we have 4 Gaia's Cradles. In addition to that, Pithing Needle, when they are on the play, can be pretty good if we have just a Bazaar only hand, but that's not common because we have 19 lands in our deck, which is a lot. And what we have the ability to do is play a Yavimaya Cradle of Growth, and it just turns on our dead Bazaar and Gaia's Cradles, and we can just start casting our stuff. So anyways, guys, I've rambled on long enough. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Feel free to leave any comments, and we're going to see you for round 2. Hey everybody, here we are for round 2. We're playing CradleVine today. Unfortunately, we're on the draw. Kiasu has a fair bit of range. I know they do like Oath of Druids, but this is an easy mull. I think we're going to powder this one. What do we want to put back here? We've got a lot of redundancy here, but I don't think I'm crazy about losing both my Gaia's Cradles, so I'm going to put one of those back. How do I feel about this hand? It's pretty good because we have Force of Vigor up. We have 2 cards that we can cast on turn 1 and Cradle to take it away. I think this is going to be an example of a non-Bazaar hand. We are on the draw, so we also get to draw a card. To be clear, this is unlikely to work, but it might. Okay. Is this a Ragavan? It is. Okay. Oh no. Good hit for them. Okay. Well, we're going to have to... I could figure their stuff here, but I think I'm going to gamble on getting a Collector Roof down in addition to my Hex Drinker. It's pretty good for them, though. I think that the Vine might matter in this. Let's just see what happens here. This is obviously vital that this resolves. We just lose if it doesn't. I really hope this oof resolves. And it does. Okay. They've got one on theirs already. I think we cast the second one trying to set up the cradle next turn. I mean, I can get this up to 2. I just think getting as many creatures down as I can is probably the best thing for me. And this is relevant. Like, they can't even, as they stand, slide Ragavan into play here. Yes! Good win, guys. I'm really excited about that because that is a byproduct of a non-bizarre hand. Yes, I realize we had Black Lotus, which is a 1-of in our deck, but that's why we run it, where main deck Collector Roof won us the game. That was magnificent. And I also thought we showing restraint around the Vengevine and the Vigor was definitely a worthwhile endeavor, despite our game plan would be to get Hex Drinkers out of Lightning Bolt range, instant range first. Having this to cast later on could turn the tides against something like this. So now, of course, if the Collector Roof ended up getting countered, which is a possibility, we would have forced a Vigor in the upkeep and tried to win that way. But very nice win. An interesting point for, as we move closer to champs, I am seeing a lot of people posting lists that run Ragavan. And maybe it's just me, but Bazaar is very confluent in the metagame right now, and of course, increasingly so as it continues to put numbers up in challenges. I just find it very odd with Root Wall as being as confluent as they are that people continue to play Ragavan. And I understand Ragavan's a powerful card and it can win games on its own, left unaccosted. I mean, against combo decks, sure. I really do like Ragavan that way, but there's a lot of permanent based decks that are running around with creatures in them and that come into play free, and I just feel like Ragavan is basically an ineffectual card against that. Like, everyone's running Deathrite Shamans, and whether they're playing 4-color or they're playing bug, and Root Wallas are everywhere, and I don't know, just an interesting note that people are doing that. So what are we playing against here? I don't really know. Once again, I just like hedging against Breach with this. Chalice probably is not where I want to be. I also probably don't want to be on 4 Force of Vigors. Do I want a Deathrite Shaman? Do I want the 4th Boseiju? I'm going to do the Boseiju, and the reason is, guys, one, I don't really know what I'm playing against. If it's Breach, I'll be happy to have the Boseiju, but it's a card that I'm actively testing, and just about everywhere that I go, this is really the big key of this particular list, is how good is having a 4th Boseiju. This is the card I'm most convinced that we don't really want in our deck. We just don't really have the tools to support it. Yes, it can get green against Bazaar decks. It could be good, but it's very slow. I think where I would see this being the best is against something like Dredge or against CradleVine. Let's get our submission in here. Yeah, this is a really nice looking hand. We've got some Tabernacle installation. Just love that about the Moxes. So nice. Not being dead to Tabernacle. Oh, Mountain. Interesting. Okay. A little bit scary. Is this Blood Moon we're playing against? It could be. This could be the Blood Moon deck. That's pretty bad for us. Ooh, that's a nice one, guys. That is nice. I can turn 1 Collector Roof here. I have a feeling we're playing against Blood Moon deck. What did I see last game from my opponent? No, it's not Blood Moon. They're playing blue. I can get a turn 1 Collector Roof down, play Mox, strip mine into Collector Roof. Probably think Cradle's correct here. I do like the root walla, though. I could get a Vengevine going here right now. Because I have the ability to play around, I'm going to get the Vine here. And I think I'm going to play a turn. I like that I have the on-color Mox here. If this does get countered and we do get Blood Moon, it's pretty significant. But if this is the Blood Moon deck, like if they're running Blood Moons, like it's not the worst for me. Once again, non-bizarre starter. They do have Force of Will here. Okay, let's see what they got. So this could be a dangerous turn. We could walk right into a Tinker here. Oh, wow. I'm going to take their land away. And because we have the Mox, I'm feeling a lot more secure here about deploying my game plan. Okay, we're going to get rid of the Vine. I'm going to discard the Blazing Root Walla, and I'm going to discard the Serum Powder. So what this does is it allows me to hold Endurance up. I don't think Endurance is likely to matter in this particular matchup, given what I'm seeing here, but it could. We've already seen a Force of Will from them, so the likelihood they can counter my Hollow one is very low. Interesting deck, Basic Mountain. Preordain. Okay, well, not much to say about that match. That was pretty straightforward. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please hit the like and subscribe button. And before I let you go, once again, turn one, no Bazaar. Very powerful. Collector Roof was likely just going to win the game there. So feel free to leave any comments. We'll see you guys next round. Hey, everybody. Andy here, AK Montoli. We're back for round 3 of our Vintage League with CradleVine. We are on the draw again. That's our third die roll loss in a row. So if we find a Bazaar for Once Upon a Time, this hand is exceptional. But in typical fashion, it is an unnecessary gamble to do that. That said, we do have one of our best cards when we are on the draw in Force of Vigor, and of course on Once Upon a Time to be able to pitch to that. I guess the question is in our top 5 cards, what is the likelihood that we will find a Bazaar or we will find a Yavimaya Cradle of Growth? If we don't find any of those, we could be in a lot of trouble. It just feels like an unnecessary gamble to me, but I will not lie. I find this very tempting, just given the pure potency of our hand. If we do find a Bazaar, we get 5 cards and a random one off the top to be able to deploy this plan. I think it's unnecessary. I am tempted to do it, but I think it could equivalent a game loss very easily for us. This hand is much, much better, guys. Okay. Once again, an example of a non-Bazaar hand, but if we're playing against workshops or combo, it looks very good because we have a Force of Vigor. Okay, I am interested in casting the Collector Roof here. I think Boseiju is a pretty nice combo piece. I think ultimately what it comes down to is, do I want to get rid of Gaia's Cradle or do I want to get rid of the Wasteland? And they both have their merits. We have to keep the Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. That is the vital card here. I guess we don't have to. If we want to play out Boseiju, that's also a reasonable thing to do as well. But if we're playing against a Bazaar strategy, I think getting rid of the Wasteland is just too much to handle. So I'm going to do this. I realize that we're giving up a little bit on ultimating our Hex Drinker here, but that is not the primary plan right now, given we don't know what our opponent's playing. This is likely the card that I would pitch. But once again, depends on what we're playing. And to be clear, if this is a Bazaar strategy, like this hand is not going to win. But Wasteland hits a lot of different lands in the format, so I think it's probably just fine to do that. Definitely seeing some new faces in Vintage over the last couple of days. I think as we move closer to Eternal Weekend, we are going to start to see people dip into the format that don't traditionally play it, or at all for that matter. But of course, we're running into lots of faces we do recognize. Vintage has a very robust, dedicated player base. Okay, so it's blue. Okay, is this Doomsday? It is Doomsday. All right. Well, this is a matchup we're actively looking to play. I mean, it's a tough matchup for us. They're just going for it. Okay. They're just Necro. Well, I think we have to force a vigor here. I think there's a low chance that it's going to work, but we're going to do it anyways. Before they draw their cards, we're just going to hit that. And what do we want to get rid of here? I think, believe it or not, like it might actually be the Collector Roof. Despite I think Doomsday has a really hard time winning through Collector Roof. Like I just see us, trying to cast Hexdrinker and winning that way, like wastelanding them and things like that. But maybe that is not a winning line here. I think it's got to be the Oof here. Like we're just not getting there with any ease. It feels awkward because the Oof is definitely the better card in the matchup, but we are just so far behind here. And of course, my opponent should have been far more. I guess they can still draw cards. I'm not sure how this works. They've gone to their end step, and this is going to be gone. So it doesn't trigger. Interesting. I'll have to see how this works. This puts them up to 7. We just have to hope they don't have any land in play, guys. Like, let's just hope they went land ritual necropotence, and we'll see what happens from here. No lands. That's improbable, but could be. Okay. Oh, so they do get it. Okay. Wasn't sure how that worked. And a discard. That's awesome. This is really rough drawing this, guys. Boseiju doesn't matter in this matchup. So I'm just going to play into days here. The reason I'm playing the Boseiju over the Cradle is I don't want them to sit back on their lands and be able to protect them easily. Okay, that's bad news, Brown, for me. So that's going to put them down to 5, and I'm not likely to be able to kill them here. Yeah, Lotus. Yeah, right into a Doomsday. 5 cards. Can they do it? So we get a lot better in the board on this matchup. Like, I think this is, well, I mean, my opponent had a very nice turn 1. Who's kidding who? They were on the play, and that's just enough to put me into a difficult spot. And perhaps I think the turning point of this game was it correct for me to wasteland or to try and build up to be able to try and cast a Collector Roof. So those are the 2 points: the wasteland and what we pitched to force a vigor. Should I have pitched the Hexdrinker or the Oof? And my gut is that, I mean, given the way this has turned out here, we definitely made the right decision with the Oof, because we still wouldn't have been able to cast it until next turn. Number 2, I guess if we didn't wasteland, we would have been able to do it this turn. So I guess they're both intertwined that way. The very interesting decision, but the likelihood my opponent didn't have a force of will or a daze are probably not great, but they don't win here if we did go the Collector Roof non-wasteland route. So very interesting. Now let's see how if my opponent can win here or not. They're going to go down to 5 life. I guess a Bazaar off the top for us could win it. Okay, so they do have it. Let's see if they stacked it right. And I mean, this is a very easy win from here, but if you're not familiar with playing Doomsday, it is very easy to make a mistake. Down to 3. Okay, let's hope they screwed this. I mean, I guess this is just Ancestral or Gush. Ancestral's 100% deterministic. Yeah. As long as they've got the right cards in the line. But yeah, there it is. Okay. So nothing I can do here. All right, good game. Let's make sure that there's nothing rogue here. Most people are just copying Discover Ends list here. Yep. Okay, guys. So that is that game. And we didn't really stand a chance. I mean, some interesting decision points there, but we definitely want our mind breaks. I think Boseiju is typically pretty poor, but they do run Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale. I also think that we want some number of endurance and surgical extractions. Despite neither of them are hugely important, they do matter. Force of Vigor, I do not believe matters in this matchup for what I mentioned earlier in the previous match, is that Leyline of the Void does nothing to us, or very little anyways, and that is their typical hate for us, is they use Leyline of the Void and they use Tabernacle. Collector Roof, very important. I like our aggro plan. We definitely want Chalice of the Void. We want to be as aggro as possible. I do think Hex Drinker is likely not to be a big player here, so I think we could get rid of that. How much do I want Boseiju? Boseiju seems like the natural choice for me to get rid of here. The other option is a Once Upon a Time, and I do like the ability to have the Once Upon a Time on the play. I like Cradle. I think Boseiju is just the odd man out here. And we have one more card to take out here. I unfortunately think that these are just a necessary evil. Also, an inexperienced opponent could make a mistake around this, not being able to play around these. I think we should able to Cradle. And the reason is, I understand that Tabernacle is a big player here for us. Like, actually, maybe it's better to keep the Cradle and get rid of the Yavimaya. Because of Tabernacle, we know it's a realistic possibility for them. Okay, let's see what we can do here this round. We are on the play. This is a pretty nice hand. Now, we are very vulnerable to Tabernacle in this hand. Leyline of the Void will likely get us with the Benjamin, but I think that is okay. Like, typically, I believe Doomsday runs one Tabernacle, so the likelihood that they have both is not high prevalence. We do likely lose if they do have both. It's going to be pretty hard on us. But I am not one to play around Tabernacle. For those of you who are listening to this, you are likely to get me with it because I think it's just important to make your opponent have it. That's the bottom line. And okay, so Vine is really bad here. I think we just get a hollow one. Like, I mean, it's a little bit risky playing in a Tabernacle with this hand, but I mean, it just is what it is, right? Oh, those are nice. Okay, well, that was really good. Can we keep them all? No. The thing is next turn, I have the ability to use Cradle to hard cast Endurance if I just discard the Vine, so I am going to do that. I mean, if my opponent can go off on me here with 6 cards and 7 cards in hand, I mean, yeah, it's pretty bad for me, but we have to try and win, right? And I'm just not going to play around it. It makes our Cradle pretty bad here next turn, if they have it, but a little bit greedy, you know, not keeping the Vengevine in hand and discarding the Cradle, or keeping the Cradle. Okay, so we survived that piece. Yeah, so they're going for it. Okay. So Surgical could be relevant here. And of course, we can die here. Depends on what they have. But it's not easy to win from turn 1 as the Doomsday player. Now, if this is Discover Ender a Guise, then yes, it's a higher prevalence that they can win from here. But your average player, it's not easy to do. And they still need to play around my Surgical here. So if they Street Wraith into Lotus, I absolutely 100% am going to Surgical here. So my opponent is conceded here. That feels a little premature. But I guess maybe I just kill them next turn. As I say, it's not easy for them to win from there. So, from a sideboard perspective, I don't really think there's anything that I'm overly concerned about here. I think we have a pretty reasonable game plan. Once again, I did want to mention my opponent is using Leyline of the Void. Yes, it got my Vengevine, but didn't do much else. Like you can see, there's nothing else that it impacts in this deck. So I think we're just going to take this in, guys. And let's see if we can sneak one by Doomsday here. We have some reasonable tools to combat them. Okay, we've got an Endurance, so we have some interaction. We also have a Collector Roof here. So this is a keep. Once again, we're if we do need to make a move here off of Endurance, what do? No Leyline this time. They have mulliganed. And Ponder is fine. We're going to need this Bazaar and Once Upon a Time to do some work for us. Chooses not to shuffle. Because we need some help. Okay, that's a good draw. I do think we Once Upon a Time here, guys. I mean, if they want to daze this, I think it's perfectly reasonable. It sets them back. There's a hollow one. I think we have to try and get our game plan going here. I think we get rid of Gaia's Cradle. I'm hoping we're not playing into Tabernacle here. It's possible, but we're going to play out and do our thing here. As I mentioned, we have to be proactive in what we're trying to do, and playing around Tabernacle is nice, but it's not essential. So it looks like we might be in on Endurance here if our opponent is able to go off. So let's see. Okay, so they're going for Black Lotus into Doomsday here, which is pretty good. But hopefully they cannot win right here. I mean, there's a reasonable chance that they can, given that they have 2 lands in play. Gush turns it on. Street Wraith could be good for them, depending if they have a cantrip in hand or not. Wouldn't say I'm feeling confident here, but if we get to untap, I feel really good about things because we can we're going to be able to cast a Collector Roof, and that's going to inhibit their ability to win cleanly. That, and I'm hitting them for a chunk of damage. But we have to survive the turn to get to that point, so I'm not going to put a whole lot of thought into it right at the moment. Let's see if my opponent with 3 cards can win here. Okay, what did they do? I mean, first let's just see if they do anything, and then I think we can kind of parse through. They have Gush here. So Gush is in their hand or deck. There's their Tabernacle, so that is not coming in. All right, well, what do they got? They do have Gush, guys. Oh, wow. All right, well, this is pretty bad news for me. Probably going to lose. I cannot stop that. Street Wraith down to 5. Okay, that's just another card that we flip. I'm not going to react yet. Down to 2. Yep. So if this endurance works, we have a chance. Down to 1. Down to 3. Yep. Black Lotus. I guess it's a question, what do they got in their hand, guys? Flusterstorm will not stop this. Do they have Force at Will? 2, 3. Yeah, they got a Force in their hand, so I can't stop it. Right, I'm not missing 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no Force of Will, guys. Well, we played this one to the best of our ability. They don't have Force of Will. Daze could possibly get us here, but they don't have a Daze in hand. Flusterstorm doesn't work. All right. So, really nice win for us there, guys. Doomsday is actively a deck that I am concerned about. I think it's a very potent deck and will be one of the top players at Eternal Weekend in the hands of an extremely competent opponent, and there are a handful of them out there. And obviously, combo is this deck's weakness. I'm a little bit more scared of PO probably than I am of Doomsday, but this is an example of our utility sideboard cards that we look to for, bizarre strategies and breach strategies to be able to combat surgical extraction and endurance. And of course, they were both vital in our ability to win this match. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and we are going to see you next round. Hey everybody, here we are in round 4 of Vintage League playing CradleVine, and we're running into Bergamo. And Bergamo is a combo player typically by nature. So once again, another good opportunity to showcase how well our deck can combat these. Most recently on Grixis Tinker, however, a notable PO background as well. That said, I think this is a very good hand against that. Of note, once again, this is the fourth time in a row this league we've lost a die roll, but we're doing all right, so let's keep her going. We're going to keep. We do have some interaction here, despite it's suboptimal because we don't really want to get rid of a Collector Roof in this type of a matchup. We would do it in a hurry given the opportunity. Okay. So this is an example, guys. I mean, we can do it in the upkeep to see if we find a better creature off of our Bazaar to discard. But of note, we do have a turn two Force of Vigor. So I'm just going to pass turn here and see if we can find something better than the Oof to pitch. Because if this does fail, so that's an example of a card that we're looking to pitch here. So let's Bazaar. So we're going to get rid of the Root Wall, and we're going to get rid of the Powder. And a little bit difficult here. You see, Gaia's Cradle is better than the Yavimaya here if the Hollow One resolves. If the Hollow One does not resolve, we're in a bit of a pickle. So I think that's it. I think we have to get rid of the Gaia's Cradle here. I mean, we still can cast it with the Wasteland. No, we can't. This is the correct way to do it. Just be very greedy of us to do it another way. Yeah, and it just resolves. So in the upkeep here, we are going to attempt to Force of Vigor my opponent. If this fails and they force a will here, then we are hopefully going to untap and cast a Collector Roof. So pretty good. Wow, Collector Roof seems strong here, doesn't it, guys? Interesting interaction, though. The Cradle turns it into a forest. I don't know how this layers, to be honest. I think I'm just going to Wasteland and not take a gamble, because just playing the Collector Roof here is not amazing. Now, what is awkward with this hand is that I don't really have a play here. I think I'm just going to come off the Collector Roof plan here, and I'm going to try and get my Hollow One into play. So we're going to get rid of an Oof. We're quite a ways away from an Oof here. I think I keep the Cradle for the presence of Boseiju. And let's go. Hopefully I don't get punished here. I feel like our line was reasonable there, but it's pretty awkward. Right, this is going to put them down to 6, and then the following turn I can deal 7. I am going to deploy all of these out. And I'm going to spin my Bazaar. Like, yes, there's a world where we get comboed here. What is the interesting turning point of this game is, was it worth me discarding my Sure Things in the Collector Roofs to get the extra 4 power into play? And my gut is it's correct. Now that said, this is a deck that is running a lot of artifacts in it, so we'll see if I get punished or not. Okay. So is this an 8-cast style deck? It feels like it. And if this is 8-cast, we are very much wanting to have our Mindbreak traps in and our Besieges. I think Hex Drinker we can probably shave down on. I think I'm probably going to get rid of a Blazing Root Wall here on the draw. Eight cast. I have not seen a seat of the Synod in a very long time. Please feel free to leave in the comments, guys, if you know how the layering works with a Yavimaya Cradle of Growth when there is a Collector Oof in play and a seat of the Synod. Is the Synod still shut off? I don't believe it is. I believe the layering here will make it a tap for a forest, which is a little bit of a nombo as far as I'm concerned. Normally, you're just thrilled to have a Collector Roof sitting on top of a seat of the Synod because it's completely nullifies the land's ability to produce mana. I think I like this configuration. There is a world where we maybe want to have I can cast a turn 1 Basking Root Walla. The Chalice is a little clunky on the draw here, but I think this is a mulligan. I just feel like we can do better, much better. I think we put a Wasteland away. The Bazaar obviously does not look very good here. This is just a hand of high quality cards that we're not really wanting to discard, but I think it'll be somewhat contingent on what my opponent does in turn 1. I could see myself just wastelanding and passing turn to try and build up some discard equity. So we're going to keep this one. I think we're going to put a wasteland away. Opponent is down to 5. Let's see how far down the rabbit hole they go. I'm assuming their deck is quite explosive, so it is very possible that they just tinker me here. But let's see. So, interesting decision point. Do we want to mental misstep this? And my feeling is yes, even though we have the Force of Vigors. So I am going to Once Upon a Time here first. And if they want to Force a Will, I think that's completely fine. I think I want the Root Walla. The reason being, obviously, it's the least powerful of all these cards, but there's a very awkward tension right now in my hand of cards I want to keep and discard, and I am going to be Bazaring this turn. So this is just a simple byproduct of doing what I have to do here. You need to think of these sort of things when you're playing these style of Bazaar decks, is you don't always have, or you're not able to always keep the best card in those type of piles, because you have to think about what's more important in your hand moving forward, because there is a cost to playing Bazaar Baghdad. You have to discard 3 cards, and discard equity is a very important part of that. And even more so challenging with this style of deck, because the card quality is just so much higher in this style of deck than your traditional Hogak Vine build, where you're just always happy to pitch Bloodghasts and Hogaks out of your deck. in addition to vines. We only really have vines that we're eager to put into our graveyard outside of the obvious in the root wallas. So our misstep did work there, which is pretty good. Fantastic. So if we can find something here, another creature that we can pitch or play like Hollow One, we're in good shape. We did not find it. This is disappointing doing this, but I am going to sit back on the root walla because we have no pressure going in this deck at all. It's really awkward. And I think getting the vine going is an important part of that. Soul Guide Lantern, yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, well, they get our Vengevine, so we did get a little bit punished for waiting here. Do I want a Vigor now? I don't know that I do. But what I can do by doing this is I can play Wasteland and just spin my Bazaar. I guess so. You know what? I'm not going to. I think I can be patient. I don't even think I have to spin my Bazaar here. Okay, that's pretty good. I guess I will. That makes my discard equity really nice. Okay, well, they're going to have to... Yeah, I'm going to force them to use their Soul Guide Lantern here. But I have a feeling they may have to draw, and they may just mess with my damage. Like, they may just gamble with my damage. But let's see. They maybe think, given enough time, that they're all right. And, of course, they don't know that I have an answer to their Saga here. So let's see what they do. Yep, so they did go after my Vine. So we might be off our Force of Vigors here. I don't know that we're going to get enough equity here to justify playing them, but we'll see. I think I'm going to wait a turn here. I'm going to wait a turn. I don't really want to discard any of these cards, and the chances that I'm going to hit... Oh, what's this? Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. I really am good with that. We're end of turn now. There's no point in doing it. And this is a card I will actively consider pitching to Force of Vigor. Yes, I realized I got... Ooh, wow, guys. All right, I'm going to do it. Two cards in hand here. They do have a Force of Will this time. Okay, see if we can find a green card here. This time we are going to spin because I think, ooh, wow, that's nice. I think I come off trap here, right? Like there's a chance I draw a green card next turn. Like, what's the likelihood that my opponent is going to go off with 0 cards in hand? I think very low. I just think that this is probably my best chance to win here, is finding a green card and getting those 2 lands. And I have a very high green count in my deck. And this is a 2-turn clock moving forward, so hopefully they brick and they just play a land here. This is Tinker, I would be... Oh, Narset. Okay, that's a nice one. Jeez. Okay. That's a bit scary. Yeah, it is 8 cast, indeed. All right. Well, I think I kill Narset here. And then in the upkeep, we're just going to blow up their 2 lands. And then we'll spin our Bazaar. We know they have a Thoughtcast in hand and 1 miscellaneous card. Okay. Okay. So they actually can Thoughtcast here. I'm F6'd. Okay, that's good news for me. All right, guys. All right, another nice win through combo, and I would expect this to be a challenging matchup. Acast can really get out of control quickly, but once again, us having 4 Besajus, 4 Force of Vigors, and 4 Collector Roofs really makes this challenging for them, in addition to combating what we're trying to put onto the board here. And this is, I think, a good segue into why I think this deck is so truly powerful. This particular version is it's so difficult to combat, and people are so focused on trying to stop your graveyard strategy, and there really is no graveyard strategy in this deck. What we're doing is we're trying to present a clock and disrupt so much of what the format does in artifacts with Collector Roofs, Besajus, and Force of Vigors that in addition to Wastelands, it's just a very powerful deck to interact with. The best tool is probably Tabernacle. That's that, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Feel free to leave any comments. I will get back to you, and we are going to see you for a trophy match. Okay, guys. Andy here, AK Montolia. We are back for round 5 in a trophy match with CradleVine, and we are playing an opponent who has an awful lot of legacy results, and they are typically in the Delver fashion, so I think it's presumable that they are playing a blue deck of some sort. What flavor that is, I'm not sure, but we're going to find out. We won the die roll, which is the first time this league, so I'm not sure whether that's a good omen or a bad omen, but we're gonna strut our stuff here. Gonna have to go down to 5. This is the first time this league that we've had to do that. We're gonna powder. I think I'm gonna put Chalice back. I think I'm gonna put a Root Wall back. And this is not gonna do it. A little bit awkward to have my trophy match go like this, but that's the way it goes sometimes, guys. Right, get rid of powder. We gotta go down to 4 here. Okay. Let's see if we get lucky. We didn't. But double vine is not something to be sad about in the event we can get things going here. A little bit of a rough start for us. We've had a very smooth run so far in this league, but Bazaar decks do this. I think I am going to be very proactive here. And the reason is that I am extremely interested in churning my Bazaar aggressively from here henceforth. We've identified that we are in some trouble here. Okay. Despite it seems, okay, this is Rug, and Rug is a tough matchup, mostly because they have Wastelands. Um, but this is an example of a situation where it just feels so futile to be so low on cards in our deck against a Rug deck that has 6 cards in hand. But we do have a possibility here of being able to go off. Now, I drew a card there because I want to have a higher chance of finding a root walla, and we were going to 2 root wallas, and we're all, or a hollow one for that matter, in addition to a root walla. But we also are going to be able to keep a card in our hand if we don't. So we did not get to go off there. And this is a gamble, because I think our only avenue to victory is to try and find root wallas to go off here. So they found the strip mine, so we did get punished for the line, but of course we weren't winning it the other way. So this is not necessarily the worst. Now we are probably stuck on finding a Bazaar to win. And we did hit. So I am going to wait one more turn. And the reason is I want a much higher chance of being able to get my vines to go. In addition to that, if I play the Bazaar and miss, they will strip mine me. And we're out of luck again. Like us finding that Bazaar was very fortuitous. And as a result of that, we are still in this game. And it makes it so that if we find a hollow one next turn, we're not out of luck. So this is probably a Deathrite Shaman is my guess here. Interesting. Is this just an Ancestral? Well, they have to discard 2 cards. My goodness. Okay, double land, which is fine. Okay, I mean, here we go, guys. We're going. We hit. So we know they have a strip mine in hand. They are very close to an ultimate Wrenn. It is my feeling that we forced them to do something here. I think going after them with all my damage is probably just the best thing to do here. Wrenn and 6 is scary here, but we got to try and win. We're putting them to 10. If they don't have the ability to deal with any of our creatures here, we are going to win the game. I still don't feel confident about it, but they have to strip me, first of all. Any Gaia's Cradle does it for sure. And they do need to manage our board. And that gives them 3 mana with which to do that. Okay, so they are getting rid of that, which makes sense. And Mince and Boo, okay. Yep, Mince is pretty good here. We should spin here. That was a good hit. Wouldn't mind, what would I mind? I guess another Bazaar would be great. Kept a Seiju's all right. So Minsk is pretty scary. But I feel like I put them to 2 damage here. I mean, I can kill Minsenbu. They're going to shoot this. They're going to block this. And they still have to deal with one more of my creatures. Yeah, we're in bad shape here, guys. I have no doubt. But I do think trying to kill them is correct. I am going to play the Boseiju. What does playing the Boseiju do for me? Allows me to pump my root wall up, but my opponent knows they can't leave the root wall alive, and the likelihood I'm going to be able to deploy it is not good. I don't think playing Boseiju accomplishes anything. So, I mean, we're putting them to the test here. I do have lethal on table. They are going to likely try and deal with one of our vines here, but let's see. Doc Faden. Okay, well, that was a reason for them not to block the hollow one last turn. I understand their logic of trying to get rid of the hollow one there because the vines can be recurred here, and which is one of the reasons why I kept the Boseiju in my hand for a higher prevalence of doing that should they remove one. But of course, this game would be over if they were able to steal my hollow one here and had killed the vine instead. Okay, Ragavan's solid. Does keep them alive. Yep. Okay, I'm not liking my chance here now. Okay. That's a pretty damn good hit. I mean, we go at them, right? And we are going to flip our Bazaar and hope to bring back our vine. Our vines. I can't wait because of the presence of... I guess there's a world where we could wait because getting a 1-1 in, it just probably doesn't do it. I think I'm just going to go. Let's hit. We did not. But we get another crack at it with Bazaar. Amazing. We're getting 2 vines back, guys. Oh, maybe it doesn't work. I don't know. Should. Yeah. Okay. I think that's going to be hard for my opponent to beat this, but I could be wrong. So they need to present 4 blockers here. All right. Guys, that was a really nice win there. We mulliganed to 3, and we're able to fight through multiple strip mines, all these planeswalkers, and I mean, admittedly lucky, but we played to our outs, and I think we played that one really well. Of note, this is the Yuta Takahashi list, which is just a basically planeswalker control. And my last 3 leagues, if you've watched them, the 2 preceding this one that were just released all at the same time, this deck has been my only loss. I went 8-2 in those leagues with 1 loss in each league to this deck. So despite we still got another win to try and accumulate here, I do feel pretty good about that we were able to get one there. I think Deathrite Shaman, just being able to control their land with Ren, is something to think about. I think there could be a world where we want a couple of endurances for the same reason. I also could see a basic forest potentially coming into play, but maybe it's unnecessary. Yeah, like they are playing Rugs, so Viseju could be a thing from them to try and combat our Bazaars. Don't think Chalice is very good. I also don't think Force of Vigor really does anything in this match. I do like the flash of this too. It's an extra creature that is able to animate my vines, and being able to flash in end of turn to pressure a planeswalker is reasonable. We may want one based on that, but I think I'm just going to probably hedge just a tiny bit and bring in a Force of Vigor. Let's try this out, guys. I think this feels good. So, interestingly, we have the Hex Drinker, and Hex Drinker seems pretty good in this matchup. I mean, Oko is a problem for sure. The problem here is that we're not really going to be able to get it up fast enough to be able to be to control them. But that said, Mental Misstep is very powerful against my opponent's turn one play. We have a basic forest that is likely to be protected. It's just like, can we keep this out of range of Ren, and can we get it pumped up fast enough? Like, how I envision this going if we keep this is my opponent turn one is likely to play a Deathrite Shaman or a cantrip of some sort. We do have Mental Misstep to protect from that. We play a snow-covered forest into a Hex Drinker, or we use the option to strip mine them. If they go Deathrite, I would be probably more apt to strip mine because it's a fairly powerful play. Where the problem is if they get into a fast rend, it completely undoes what I'm trying to do with my hand. Like, Deathrite Shaman is such an integral part of what they're trying to do. Like, it's a very greedy mana base for this deck. This is kind of like a mulligan already, but it is fodder for a Bazaar if and when we draw one. My question is and they've kept their 7. My question is this going to be strong enough? Like, I do like Hex Drinker in this match. What we're banking on this hand is being able to get a turn 1 Deathrite and strip mining them off their land and crippling them as a result of that. I don't think it's powerful enough. This hand, however, I like a lot more. I'm going to keep this. Cradle is a powerful card here. We have the on-color Mox, which is really big, and getting away with a Hex Drinker in the next turn is no small game. So once again, I'm not intoning that this is a great hand, but it does have some tools here. We have Wasteland, we have a Wasteland, and we still have our turn 1 play with Pump with the Hex Drinker. Like, it's pretty good. Vulnerable, once again, this is a hand that is very vulnerable to a Ren and 6 in multiple ways, but these are the hands, obviously I'm trying to play this to the best of my ability and knowledge of the deck, but there is great value in playing for science with these types of hands, because my argument for playing this deck at Eternal Weekend is its ability to play without Bazaar because of the presence of Confluent Wasteland everywhere. And we need to try these hands out to see how good they are. And I mean, my synopsis thus far is it has been better than good. But, this is plan B, right? Like, think of this hand if we draw Bazaar off the top. It's very strong. So this could be a turn 1 Ren and 6 here. They do have the on-color Mox, which is unfortunate. Wasteland. Okay. Yep. As I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you saw that part of my video or not, but I just really, good for them, I really don't think that Ragavan is a good card in the metagame right now. Okay, my opponent casts it. It's pretty good because they have green mana. Boy, would that Bazaar be nice, eh? Look, I realize they could have Ren and 6 here. There's just not much I can do to truly play around this card. Just is what it is. You know, I can't. I'm so close to getting it out of range, but I'm just not quite there. Question is, do I wasteland them here? And if they wasteland me, I think that's fine. I think I pump it up and just use the opportunity while I can to try and get this thing out of range. They maybe don't have Ren in hand, and if they don't, there's a chance that I'm going to be able to get this thing going here. Okay, that's not a Ren. I think these decks do run a minor amount of spot removal in them, but not a lot. They're very focused on the Planeswalker aspect. Yeah, Fury, very nice. It's a good one. I'm glad they did it there, so I didn't invest any more in it. Ragavan, they're doing really well here with their resources. Okay, Yavimaya. So, of note, my Cradle is not looking overly good right here at the moment, but I would not, well, I guess Collector Roof is pretty bad here. I was going to say shutting off their boxes, but it actually might be worth it. Like Ragavan getting the treasure token here is very solid for them. We need a Bazaar of Baghdad. A Bazaar of Baghdad would be wonderful here. Well, good for them. So we have to wasteland this. Do we cycle? Yeah, my fear is a Ren and 6 coming down here, but there's not much I can do about it. Cycling here does not accomplish anything. I've already played my land. I've got a pump up here in activation if need be. And of course, my main goal is to cycle into a Bazaar here. So they have a wasteland. Okay. Yeah, that Fury was really good. No, they got rid of a Wren. Okay, Once Upon a Time is pretty decent, actually. They're going to pump. It's not the worst. Feels like they are. Interesting, they left the red man up. What does that mean? They're just going to hardcast a Ragavan? Yeah, okay, I don't dislike that. They're down to one card here. Okay. Do I leave open the green or do I waste them? Next turn, I'm going to try and Bazaar here. I really want the card equity, and I don't want to expose it without a higher chance of the vines coming into play. I will block the Ragavan, of course, given the opportunity. So what we're looking for off the top here is definitely a combination of Root Wall, a Hollow One. Even something we can cast is fine. Okay, there's one. I mean, we got to go, right? Okay, we didn't quite get there. So what we do is we discard, we did get there. We discard the two vines and then we just endurance their yard. It's pretty strong. And we have Insulation to Tabernacle here. Funny enough, I can almost cast the endurance here, but we're just going to do it. And I am going to put their graveyard away. The reason is if they find a Wren, then I'm not as happy. Doesn't really matter how I stack it. They can respond with Deathrite if they so choose. They did not. Okay, well, I mean, and we have a pump on our Root Wall of note, guys. That red Mox looking very strong. All right, well, I mean, that was pretty good. They just remove it, or do they have a Vampire Tutor here? That would be unfortunate. They did. They're just removing lands from my yard. All right. Okay. That's some life gain for them. I am going to spin here. What is the likelihood they have something like a Hull Breacher? Fairly low, I would think. Don't think that the benefit outweighs the risk here. And let's get in. They can trade with my Root Wall against one of my vines, yeah, which is what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I could wait for them to react. It doesn't really matter. Yep. All right. They're down to 2. So they need to be able to get a second blocker here. They can go up to 4. All right, guys. So nice trophy for us there. What do we glean from this league? So first and foremost, that Monster Ooh is actually pretty good there. That's been an active discussion as to how valuable that is. It does offer just sometimes pumping up a root wall matters, and it did matter there. That was going to be the card that was going to close it out for us. But in all seriousness, I thought the deck performed extremely well. Our mana base was very well rounded. I felt like we always had an option, um, on turn 2 with reference to casting things. I think we displayed on multiple games, keeping non-bizarre hands, and I don't know that we really lost any. I think, only dropped a game that entire league. Yes, we only lost one game, so we went 5-0, only losing a game the entire league. The rest of them were 2-0, and that's a tribute to the deck. I mean, we beat also of note that last match is the deck that I lost to, the Utah Planeswalker control deck. Uh, the previous 2 leagues, it was the only loss I had in both of those leagues, one in each league. So once again, a tribute to the deck. And uh, Leyline of the Void does not impact our deck in almost any capacity whatsoever. Barring that you have a double Vengevine hand in your opener and the Leyline comes into play, it really is not going to impact you that much. The Vengevine is just discard equity at that point, or force a bigger fodder. And of course, more importantly, we can just hardcast our Vengevine should we choose to do that. It's very viable when you're running four Gaia's Cradles and 3 Yavimaya Cradle of Gross in your deck. Yeah, we didn't run into Dredge, but we certainly ran into a combo league this time, and really that's where my focus is. I want to know that this deck can win through those, and I think this was a very good display of that. I am feeling like this has started to become a much more polished deck with reference to Eternal Weekend. So anyways, that said, guys, please, thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it. Please hit the like and subscribe button, leave any comments, and we're going to see you next time.